But that'll get us started. That way, with recording the webinar today, this informational webinar, we'll be posting this to the City of Dubuque's Arts and Culture section of the website, so you can go back to access it later on, to play it back, to share it with volunteers, board members, others within your organization that you want to listen in to the information that's being presented. So again, we've just had a couple more folks come on. I'm Jenny Peterson Brandt, the Arts and Cultural Affairs Coordinator for the City of Dubuque, working within the Economic Development Department. And I just welcome you all to the webinar today to learn about the City of Dubuque's Arts and Culture Special Projects Grant Program. So we'll dive right in. So the agenda for today's webinar is to touch on a few different areas of the program. This will be a webinar that is based on sharing with you how the program works, and not necessarily a grant writing workshop. So there are other resources in the community that we're happy to connect with you if you need support in that realm of grant writing. But today we'll really focus on the particulars of the program itself, and provide the opportunity for all of you to ask questions about the program if you're new to it, and also for us to share out some of the changes that we've made for the FY22 program, changes that have very thoughtfully been considered by the city's Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission to adjust the program in response to COVID-19 impacts, and to allow your organization a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more access to using the funds in the upcoming year for hopefully for some potentially new and exciting programs. So today what we're going to be covering is important dates related to this grant stream. We'll cover the eligibility requirements related to the Special Projects Program. We'll cover funding guidelines, rating criteria. We'll walk you through the application so that you, especially for those of you that might be new to this program, it'll help to walk you through how the online application form kind of works, how to access it, and what you can expect when you go into that. We'll touch on the review process of the applications, and so what you can kind of expect in terms of the timeline on the city side of things, cover a few helpful tips, and then open it up to questions at the end of the webinar today. So the purpose of the Special Projects Program, I'm just going to open my questions window to make sure I keep an eye on that. Sorry about that. But the purpose of the Special Projects Grant Program is to provide funding that aims to cultivate unique and innovative creative arts and culture experiences that, one, prioritize community engagement, and two, also focus on active partnership in which all parties involved in the project may experience change and growth. We also expect that special projects incorporate DEI planning and practices into the development and the execution of the project, as well as aligning with the goals and priorities of the City of Dubuque's Arts and Culture Master Plan, which we'll go through that in a little bit, and how you can, how the form is set up to help you identify where that alignment with your proposed project, where that alignment lies. So the important dates to keep in mind, the first date on here is just for those of you that might also be applying for the Arts and Culture Operating Support Program. So just as a reminder that those applications are due on Monday, May 17th, again through the online form, and they're due at basically at midnight that night on May 17th. The form will turn off and you won't be able to access it anymore. In terms of the special projects application, those are going to be due on Tuesday, June 1st. And again, those are due through an online form. You submit and upload all your materials through the online form, and again, due by midnight that night on June 1st. Once all of those applications come into us, we compile them and prepare them to be reviewed by a panel, typically of 3 jurors, who those jurors are typically folks who are connected with the community of Dubuque, but are aware of what happens aware of the programming that's usually taking place within the arts and culture sector. But we do have those panelists be people who are not associated with any of our applicants, and also the panelists are people who do not serve on the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission. Once that panel has the opportunity to receive those applications and to review and score those, we give them about 3 to 4 weeks to do that work. They give that scoring back to the Arts and Cultural Affairs Commission, which crafts a funding recommendation that is presented to City Council for final approval in mid to late July. And once we have that official approval from the City Council, then I'm able to go through the process of creating award notifications and sending out contracts to all the successful awardees for the Special Projects Grant Program. Once we have those contracts back, and we also have those contracted awardees submit an invoice for payment with those contracts, then we submit those to the city's finance office, and we release the grant award funding sometime in August. So all of this is very much a process of scheduling and city council meeting schedule and special meetings held by the commission. So it does take a little while, but we work through the process as quickly as possible. One of the things to note with the special projects program, the way that we set up the funding disbursement is that any successful awardee will receive 80% of their grant funds on the front end. So that invoice that you would submit, again, would be for 80% of your grant award. And then we pay out the remaining 20% of the grant award after completion of your project and submission of a final report related to the project that we're able to review, and then put in the final invoice for the remaining funds to be dispersed to you. So in terms of eligibility, here's the thumbs up and the thumbs down on that. So if you are a Dubuque-based organization who operates as a nonprofit tax-exempt organization under 501c3 of the IRS regulations, you are eligible to apply. Organizations that also operate as groups that have their own specific mission, governing structure, and budget, but might function underneath the incorporated status of another Dubuque-based organization. So in the sense of a great example of this is the Dubuque County Fine Arts Society acts as a fiscal agent for a number of organizations like Bluff Strokes and the Dubuque Writers Guild. And so those organizations that operate under that fiscal agent umbrella of the Dubuque County Fine Arts Society are also able to apply for this program. And in recent years, we've also opened up the program to allow for organizations and groups that might be functioning as a nonprofit, and they can demonstrate their broader service to the greater community, but they might not have had the chance to either file paperwork or pursue actually becoming a nonprofit, an official nonprofit, or establish operation under another fiscal agent. So we don't have that happen a lot. So if you are an organization listening in that feels that you fit that third eligibility criteria and you have questions on that, please feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss your the specifics of your organization and talk about how you demonstrate that to the review panel of how you fit that criteria. So those that are not eligible to apply for the program are for-profit organizations or businesses, individual artists, any organization or group that is based outside of Dubuque city limits, or you are a nonprofit organization that has previously been awarded funding from the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs, and you have an outstanding report from a previous grant that you received in FY20 or before that. So if you're an awardee that received a grant last year, which would have been FY21, those final reports are not due yet at this time, and so this applies simply, this outstanding final report applies to FY20 or prior grants that might have been received by organizations. I will say that within this ineligible organization category, any of these entities on the right-hand side can serve as a partner in a proposal from an eligible organization, but just cannot be the applicant for the grant funds themselves. So they can be a partner in your project proposal, but they cannot be the applying organization or entity for the program. So one thing that's particular with this special projects program that differs from operating support, operating support is really about unrestricted funds that go to organizations to use to that are used to keep the lights on, to keep staffing on board. There isn't criteria related to eligible expenses related to the operating support program. But when we turn over to the special projects program, there is eligible projects and eligible expenses related to that. And these are all detailed in the guidelines for the program. So you can propose a special project that includes the creation, performance, exhibition, publication, or presentation of arts and culture experiences that are related to culture and historic resources, folk and traditional arts, theater, opera, spoken word, literature, dance, performance, music, film, any form of visual art, and other arts-related learning opportunities are eligible projects to be proposed under this program. In terms of eligible expenses that can be covered by the requested grant funds, those eligible expenses can include artist or contractor fees related to that specific project, licensing or subscription fees needed to carry out the project, supplies, materials needed for the project, space and equipment rental, domestic travel related to the project, marketing and publicity. You can also, which is new this year, you can purchase non-consumable equipment, but that with the grant funds, but that equipment does have to be under $500 as part of the grant request. I'll emphasize that your equipment purchases could be, for instance, if you needed to buy a piece of equipment that cost $1,000, you could have that written into your program proposal, but only $500 worth of the grant funds could cover part or half of that $1,000 equipment purchase. The other half would have to be covered from another source. And we've also included this year as part of FY22 that you can include employee or volunteer costs that are essential to meeting the project outcomes. And that word essential is very crucial, and you'll need to explain that within your project narrative of how those employee costs, who might be ongoing employees for your organization, but how their time that you're looking to have covered through the grant funds is essential to meeting the project outcomes as part of this grant proposal. So some of the things that are ineligible, and again, these are outlined in the guidelines for this particular grant program. You can't ask for the grant to cover projects that either have already started or that are going to end after the funding period, which for FY22, the funding period is July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. So your project has to start and end within that time frame for any of the expenses to be eligible. Expenses that are related to ongoing projects or programs that have arbitrary beginning and end dates are not eligible for to be covered by the grant request. Projects or activities that are not open to the public. So if you're if you want to put forward a program that would only be open to limited membership of your organization, that would not be, those expenses would not be eligible for being covered by the grant program. It can't cover general operating expenses, but again, it can cover that staff or volunteer time that is essential to the carrying out of this particular project that you're proposing. The activities to be covered can't be of a religious, political, or sports nature. Expenses can't go towards fundraising or benefit events, competitions, contests, or awards to honor or recognize achievement. We don't allow for food, beverage, or catering costs to be covered by the grant funds, but again, you might have a project that you're proposing that does have a public reception where food and beverage is part of the cost of that event, but those food, beverage, or catering costs would have to be covered by funds other than those being requested through the actual grant. International travel is not covered by the special project grant funds. Capital projects of construction or property renovation are not covered. Major equipment purchases are not covered, but again, if you have a major, more significant equipment purchase that you're looking to make as part of the project to be held, you could have $500 of that equipment covered by the grant. The remaining part of the equipment cost would need to be covered by outside matching funds. You cannot request the money to re-grant out to other organizations or individuals. The grant can't be requested to cover lobbying activities, and the grant funds can't be requested to solely for the purpose of acquiring or purchasing a work of art for a permanent collection, including public art installations. So those are the things that are not eligible to be covered by the grant funds. In terms of funding guidelines for the special projects program, again, we're continuing that a maximum award can be of $8,000. Your project can be as large as you would like it to, but you can only request up to $8,000 of funding through this program to cover $8,000 worth of that particular special project. For FY22, we have lowered the minimum amount that you can ask for to $1,000 for $1,500, knowing that some organizations have a little less flexibility and fewer resources to carry out bigger projects and programs. And so you might want to do something that's a little bit on a smaller scale. And so we've decreased, taken down that minimum award amount by a little bit. It was $1,500 previously. We continue to have $35,000 available across the board in terms of the program. So that's the maximum award. That's the maximum amount that the city can award as part of this program. And so within that, we try to fund as many great projects as we can. And sometimes if we have a really large amount of applicants for the program, that might mean that maybe you apply and you ask for $8,000, but because we have so many great programs that are put forward as part of are asking for funding, that maybe we can only support $7,000 or $6,000 of what you're asking before. So it's not a guarantee that we are able to fund all of the grant requests that you're asking for. And one of the other things that the commission has decided to do for FY22 only is that we are, in the past, a one-to-one match has been required for special projects proposals. Again, this year, because we feel that organizations might not have the resources to provide matches either from their own sources of cash or in kind, or that sponsorships and other in-kind partnerships that they might have had in the past are a little less accessible this coming year. We are not requiring a match, but we still are encouraging the match to be there. We won't, the applications won't be judged on the match being there or not, but we still do encourage it because it continues to demonstrate that there is investment outside of the city in a project that's being put forward. So that's something new for this year to pay attention to. In terms of the rating criteria for the special projects program, this is also something that the commission, we have tried to simplify and condense a little bit this year, and we just continue to try to streamline these programs to make them as relevant and as equitable and as straightforward as we can, and putting these out and making them something that organizations like yourselves that are on the call want to take advantage of. So the rating criteria for this year has been narrowed down to 5 different categories of rating. And these will be the areas that the panelists will review in your application and score accordingly on them. And each of these areas, there's 3 points that are available, and in the program guidelines, there is a rubric set out in terms of what each one of these areas means in terms of getting 3 points, 2 points, or 1 point in each of them. But I'll go over them just a little bit here to clarify which each of these means. So one of the first questions in your application, that is a narrative section that you'll be asked to address, is to share in your application the project description, what the goals and objectives of your project are, and highlighting within that project description what makes the project unique, innovative, and timely. And so speaking to that relevance piece that's listed up here, and in terms of potential community impact and for your organizational growth. So that's one of the sections of the rating criteria that we'll be looking at. Another piece of the rating criteria is providing evidence of active partnership through the explanation of the roles and responsibilities of all partners, including your organization and anyone that you're partnering with to make this happen. And then a piece of that partnership is also that you'll be supplying a letter of commitment from the primary project partner. You can have more than one project partner in what you're proposing, and you can supply additional letters of commitment, but we just for sure need to see one to demonstrate that it's that you're working with another organization, individuals, or entities in the inner as part of your project to bring this to the Dubuque community. So another piece that we'll be looking at for this project is, or in your project proposal, is how you is illustrating how you have incorporated DEI strategies into engaging or representing diverse voices, advancing equity, and creating inclusive access to the project activities. The fourth area that we'll be looking at in terms of rating your application is looking at your organizational readiness to implement the project. And this will, for those of you that have applied for this program before, this will feel like a new section of the pie for you, but what we've done this year is actually we've condensed a couple different pieces of what we've looked for in the past in terms of for you to demonstrate your timeline of your activities, the evaluation methods that you're proposing, and the appropriateness of your budget for the project that you're proposing to put together. So we've condensed all of those into this one section of the pie for the organizational readiness, and wanting to just understand that you're ready to carry out the project that you're proposing. And then the fifth piece of the pie is demonstrating how your project actively advances the City of Dubuque's Arts and Culture Master Plan goals and priorities. And again, when we go through the application, actually walk through the application, you'll get a better understanding of how you're able to do that in the application process. So related to that rating criteria that I just showed you, we really, and again, back to the purpose of this whole program, there are really three things that we are looking for, and we really want, as you design projects that are a match for this program, these three things should really be at the front of mind in designing a program. So the first being the uniqueness or the relevance of the project, that these projects should create unique and innovative artworks, arts experiences, or arts learning opportunities that stand out from the applicant's previous offerings in a significant way. One of the things that we've tried to define this year a little bit more clearly is that a special project proposal can be something that's within an established series of programs, but it has to. So, for instance, if you, I'm going to call out the Heritage Center's live at the Heritage Center series, which is an ongoing series of programming that they do. But within that, they might have an artist, a project, an activity that is something new and unique that they're bringing to that series of programming. And that particular piece could be something that is eligible for a special projects grant. So again, you couldn't ask for a special projects grant to fund an entire ongoing series of programming, but if there's something new and unique and relevant that you want to bring something to an established series that you already do, those are, please propose those. We would love to see those ideas. So that's one imperative with special projects. The second is that partnership piece, that it has to be an active and collaborative partnership with one or more entities. And by entities, that means that it could be an individual artist that's helping you to create and design the program. It could be another organization. It could be a for-profit business that is your partner. But the emphasis is on that it is an active and collaborative partnership where you're working together with that entity to develop the actual project and program that you're putting forth. A piece of this, you explain this in the narrative, in the application process, and then you also would have the opportunity to submit that letter of commitment that demonstrates support for the project and describes the partner's role in the project activities. And then finally, another project imperative is that it has to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion work into the project. And that might come in the form of, is likely going to come in the form of your planning efforts in terms of who, perhaps that's in the form of who your partners are, perhaps that's in the form of audiences that you're reaching out to, new marketing strategies that you're exploring to work with audiences that you haven't worked with before, to represent voices from the community that your organization typically hasn't been working with. It's a very sort of broad area to be able to work within, but definitely has to be, again, it sort of goes to that partnership and also to that uniqueness that you're stretching yourself and you're learning, and that you're incorporating diverse, equitable, and inclusive practices into the project that you're putting forth. So again, just a statement in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion from the city, that's a part of our grant application process, and just that the city of Dubuque strives, and really this is the reason why this is a part of these application processes, is that the city of Dubuque strives to be an equitable community of choice and wants to support organizations that advance that goal. If you are, oops, I did not update this piece. If you are receiving special projects funds, please cross that out in your minds and replace that. If you're receiving special projects funds, grantees are expected to identify and participate in professional development opportunities focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, and that it is important that grantees demonstrate a commitment to welcoming and serving any and all Dubuque residents, integrating DEI best practices into their operations, and meaning specifically speaking to the operations and planning and execution around your special project, and presenting diverse art forms, creative voices, and cultural experiences. So in terms of getting ready to submit your application, a few things to know is that applications must be submitted online. There's an online form for you to complete. The answers throughout the form are limited to specific character counts, and those are all noted throughout the form. And I just put a note here that those character counts do include the spaces. So one thing that you might want to do, and that we make available to you, is a downloadable Word document of all the application questions that you can download in advance. You could type out your narrative there and then cut and paste into the online application form. It's kind of handy in terms of tracking your character count beforehand before you get to work in the online application form. When you're in the online application form, you can save and return to your application as you go. One thing to note is that this is exclusive of the uploads that are asked for. So anywhere in the application form where you're asked to attach something, what I advise people to do is that as they're working through their online form, to advance through the form, that they basically upload dummy documents. So just grabbing something that is like a test document, maybe something titled test PDF, that you can upload to advance through the online application form, and then doing all your uploads at the end just before you're ready to submit. We ask that you attach only the requested attachments, and that others that you might include will be discarded or just not looked at. And definitely to determine early if you have trouble filling out the online form so that we can assist you in advance of the deadline. As you're working through the form, once you're ready to submit and hit that button at the end of the process, there is an option, and again, I'll show you this as we kind of walk through the form, but there is an option for you to select to save and receive a copy of that application to your email. So you'll want to make sure to pay attention to that. The applying organization, and not city staff, is solely responsible for the content of your application. And we don't allow for changes or additions after the application is submitted. And we do strictly enforce the deadlines, which is pretty much done through the fact that the form will turn off at 11:59 or after 11:59 p.m. on June 1st. So you won't be able to access it anymore. And again, just don't be afraid to contact me with questions, but definitely to reach out as early as possible, so that to ensure that I have time to get back to you on that. So So what we're going to do next is we're going to dive into what to expect when you go into the online form, when you go to the City of Dubuque's website, and how to access the online application form and to navigate through it. So there's a couple of ways to get right to the form. You can just start at the cityofdubuque.org. That will get you to the main landing page for the city's website. And then if you click on the Doing Business tab, under that you'll see a navigation link for arts and culture that you can click on, and it will take you to the main arts and culture section of the website. Or you can just type in cityofdubuque.org/arts and culture, and that will take you to the same exact spot, which will land you on a page that looks like this. On this page, I'll draw your attention to, on the left-hand side is a tab that is just entitled Funding Programs and would normally have a plus sign next to it. When you click on that plus sign, it's going to drop down all of the pages that are housed under that funding program section. And then whether you're applying for operating support, the special projects grant, if you have frequently asked questions, or some troubleshooting, and also link to the funding recognition is under here. So you can just click on the special projects tab, or projects grant, special projects grant tab, which would take you over to this page. And on this page, you're going to find more information, a lot of what we've talked about here today, with specific links that will take you out to a downloadable PDF of the guidelines and the rubric. There's a downloadable PDF and again, a Word document of the actual application questions, and the online application form you can access right here. You can click on that, and that'll take you over to the Civic Plus online form center and to that direct form for starting to complete. When you click on that link, the online application form, the next page that you're going to end up at is a page that looks like this, which at the top should say FY22 Special Projects Grant Application. And I encourage you, before you start filling stuff in, to if you have a previous account, to sign in, or if you need to create an account in the city's Civic Plus system, you can do that right here. Like I said, I suggest doing that before you get started, just to make sure that you don't lose any information that you might start typing in, and then you want to save it before you've actually signed in. I've added up in the top right corner here Kelly Buchanow's contact information. Kelly Buchanow is a communication specialist with the city's public information office. And I'm the person to reach out for questions about the grant program itself. When it comes to the technology piece, if you're having problems signing in, you think you have an account, but you don't seem to be able to access it, if you've run into a hiccup with saving something, Kelly is your technology person that you want to reach out to and tell her the problems that you're experiencing, and she can help you through that process. So she's the main administrator for the city's Civic Plus system. So again, Kelly Buchanow is a great one, and a super friendly person to reach out to and ask for assistance from. So when you click on that sign in or create an account, the next page that you're going to end up seeing is a page that looks like this, where if you have an existing account, you would click on the existing account. If you don't have an account, you can create an account, and you can also log into your account from Facebook or Yahoo. I myself have to use this system to submit some different things, and so whenever I log in through this existing account tab. If at any time you want to go just directly to this page to log into your account and to see applications that you have in progress or past applications that you might have submitted, you can simply go to the cityofdubuque.org/my-account. Will take you right to this page, and you don't have to do those few steps of navigation that we've already gone through here today. You can just start right here. So once you're signed in, you start filling out and completing the application form. Just wanted to draw your attention to that in the upper right hand part right here, there is a save progress button that as you're going along, you can save the progress. It is going to require that as you hit the save progress button, that anything that has an asterisk next to it, that means it's a required field and there will have to be something in there for you to save the progress on that particular page. And like I said, that asterisk means required information. And the parts of the application are broke down into sections. So there'll be a contact information section to complete, an organizational profile, which is just basic information on your organization. This is something that we have added this year to give the opportunity for you to state the mission of your organization separate of the description of your project. So that was something that we found that was missing in years prior in terms of the panelists really fully evaluating that project and how that project furthers your organization and your mission that you have as an organization. There'll be places throughout that, and this is a piece of the organizational profile section, and back to that eligibility piece of the question that we ask you to, if you're a 501c3 organization, we ask you to upload your IRS letter, that your determination letter that shows you are a 501c3. If you operate under the fiscal sponsor of another organization, you will have to acquire a letter from an authorized representative of the parent 501c3 organization affirming that you are under their fiscal sponsorship. And again, if you are an organization or group that operates as a nonprofit, but just simply has not had the opportunity, gone through the work of becoming your own 501c3, but you function in that way and are able to provide evidence of that, you would add a file up here. As you'll notice, these do not have asterisks next to them, so you have to choose the one that best fits your organization to upload to. And then we do ask that you upload just a document that shows us who your organization's current leadership personnel is. And for some of you, that might be a list of board members because you might be operated solely by volunteers, or this might be a staff listing, just to give us an idea of your organizational structure so we know who the leadership is and who to contact and who to expect that we would be working with and supporting in your project. So in the project narrative section of the application, there is, there's a question that asks you to talk about the roles and responsibilities of your organization and the partners involved in the project. There is underneath that area where you can upload a letter of commitment from your primary project partner. And if you have additional letters, say you have 2, 3, 4 letters from other project partners, we just ask that you put any additional letters into a single PDF and would upload those here. Again, this is not required to have those additional letters, but if you have them, you can add them to your application. In regards to that question asking about how your project aligns with the city's arts and culture master plan, for those of you that applied this year, you'll definitely notice that this is different. Last year we had a system of coding that asked you to refer back to the actual hard copy or the digital copy of the plan and use a system of coding to let us know which goals and priorities your project was identifying with. That was a sort of a clunky and cumbersome sort of system to have you report and also for our reviewers to understand what you were aligning with. And so this year we've incorporated just a simple checklist that outlines the different priorities of the plan, and then the major strategies under each of those priorities with the plan. You can select um, you must select at least one of these. For your project must align somehow with at least one of these, but it can align with multiple. So select all that apply to your project, and then there will be a narrative section where you can tell us about how your project proposal is aligning with what you've selected above. The following section of the application asks for you to outline your project expenses based on the different eligible expense categories that we covered earlier. Again, this funds requested column, this is for the money that you're actually asking for the city's grant program to cover. If you have a cash match that's covering a part of your artist fees, you would add that in the second column. In-kind match refers to anything where you're having something, the cost donated to you, but you can incorporate that into demonstrating public support for your project. We often see this in the rental area for this, where a venue might donate the value of the space to you. We also see this a lot in the marketing and publicity category, where local media services might donate the printing costs or something to you. But those are all things to include in that in-kind match. And again, the match is not required for FY22, but is still encouraged. So on the far right column, that would be where these three, the requested funds, any match funds, any in-kind funds, total up here on the right-hand side. And then just because we, within those different categories, it's hard for us to, get a sense of how many artists you might be paying and at what rate you might be paying within the lump sum that you put there. We do ask that you just create a simple document based on the different expense categories to let us know how those costs are breaking down. Again, this is getting back to that, helping us to understand the appropriateness of the money that you're asking for and how you're going to be using it in paying artists or contractors, supplies and materials that you're spending money on. Any of that it helps us in evaluating and understanding your project that you'll be putting forward. So there is an example here that is linked to on the online form. So this is what the example looks like, this here on the right. So you can download that and take a look at it to help you understand what that detailed project budget could look like. And then finally, after the budget questions are answered, the next page that you'll go to is just an assurances page that asks you to agree that everything that you're submitting is as honest and truthful to the best of your knowledge, that you'll be complying with all federal, state, and local regulations governing the award and the use of the grant funds, and an agreement to maintain those records to help us understand that you've completed and help you evaluate your project going through. So those are just a simple checklist. And then you'll type in the name of the person submitting the application, date it, and then here again is where you, down at the bottom here is where you would click to receive an email copy of the form once you hit submit, and enter your email address down there where you want that copy of the form to go. When you click submit, it will create one of those reCAPTCHA verification things, which in our system on the city's website is the little collection of photos. The last time I did this, I had to select all the photos that had chimneys in them. So that will come up, and then it will allow, once you select all those that fit the description that it's asking for, it allows you to submit the application form. And then once you submit, you should see a screen that looks like this. The picture at the top might be different because this rotates depending on the day and time that you're on this page on the website. But the text should look the same, where you just get a success, congratulations, your grant application has been submitted. And it provides my contact information of my email address at jbrandt@cityofdubuque.org, or you can also reach me at my phone number if you have any problems with it. If you were to hit submit and didn't see this, definitely contact myself or Kelly Buchanow right away, and we can see if there was what's going on, if there was some sort of glitch with submitting, and get that taken care of. Just to touch base in terms of once you hit submit, what the review process will actually look like. All of those applications come into me, and I receive them and compile them with the help of my intern. We check all the documents to make sure that we have everything that you were asked to submit in the application form, and then we'll provide updates throughout the process if they're needed. Usually those updates include just that the application portal has wrapped up, letting you know in terms of when they'll be going out to the review panel, and then letting you know through the process of when they've been reviewed. And we let you know either way if you've been successful in your grant application or not. We let you know either way. After we've compiled all the submissions, we send them off to the review panel, which reviews and scores them individually, and then we get those scores back and compile them and average them, which is then those scores are then forwarded to the commission for their consideration and how they want to award out that $35,000 across all of the applications. And then once the commission has had an opportunity to do that, they put together a recommendation of the various funding levels that we forward to the city manager, who then recommends on to city council the approval of those awards. At any time in that process, the city manager or the city council can adjust the Arts Commission's recommendation. Typically that does not happen, but there is that possibility that that as part of the review process that they can adjust those if need be. And then the city council, the city manager and the city council will review that. It'll be part of an official city council meeting for them to consent and approve the item. And then once I have that authorization from the city council, it comes back to me to draft and distribute the contracts, to forward those contracts out to all of you, and then receive them back and get them to the city manager for final execution, and then just ensure the distribution of awards through our confidential account clerk and the finance department. And then I always follow up once the awards contracts are signed and everything's sort of official. Then we follow up with public relations stuff related to announcements on the awards of who received what, and we encourage you to share that, and we try to tag folks in those posts when we put those out on Facebook and social media, and then we also send it out to the newspaper. So just a couple helpful tips to just review and prepare your application materials early. Again, use the provided Word document to help draft your responses before you go into the online application form, I think is a very helpful thing. To remember that the character count does include spaces as you're working on those narrative responses, and that to really keep the focus of your narrative and your project on what are the community outcomes and the impact that you want to see, really explaining the why of your project and the activities, keeping that really front and center in your narrative. And that, of course, just want to encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. So my final slide today is just my contact information with my email. The first phone number is a mobile work number, and then my office phone number. I continue working from home, So the first number does tend to be a better one to get me at. Annie Flanagan is currently my Arts and Cultural Affairs intern and helping me to help to create the slideshow today, and will be helping me to process those applications that come in. And then again, Kelly Buchanow is the communication specialist with the Public Information Office and is the person that you'd want to reach out to with any technical issues that you might have along the way in the online application form. So that's all that I have today. If anybody has any questions that they want to put in the question section, and I can try to answer those. I'm also going to see if this allows me to look at who my attendees are, and I'm going to unmute you all, or at least provide you with the opportunity to unmute yourselves to ask a question if you have one. Or again, you're welcome to type it into the question section if you would prefer to do that. Okay. Well, if we don't have any questions here today, again, do feel free to follow up with me via email. The webinar will be available very soon. I'm actually, last time I was able to do it right away following the webinar and put it on the website. That'll be available on that special projects information page of the website to access for playback and to share with anybody that you need to share it with. And like I continue to say, just reach out if you have any other questions. If there's nothing else today, I will release all of you to go continue to do the good work that you do, and wish everyone a really great weekend, and hopefully some brighter skies, but I don't know if that's in the cards for us this weekend. But just a great evening to all and a great weekend to everyone, and thank you for being here.